All right. Sound now. Check 1, 2, 3.
More checking here.
Checking here.
Well, talking to the chat room. Ooh, that sounds really bad. All right. Sound now. Check 1, 2, 3.
More checking here.
Wow, that sounds really bad. Well, talking to the chat room. Ooh, that sounds really bad. All right. Sound now. Check 1, 2, 3.
More checking here.
Wow, that sounds really bad. All right. Sound now. Check 1, 2, 3.
More checking here.
Checking here.
Talking to the chat room. So, Chag, are you hearing the really nasty audio, or is it just some feedback loop happening on my side? Ooh, that sounds really bad. All right. So what am I hearing if I've got that stopped? Do I have two streams going? Is that why it's ragged? So there's a loop going on there, but I don't know why. So what's looping? Okay, let me close that. Ah, that's where it was. Okay. I did have 2 pages going. That's darn browser window. I really apologize for wasting all your time.
It's not wasted. Time spent among friends is never wasted.
All right, so I killed that other stream and was silent long enough that it should go away. Yeah, on my screen, the chat is totally unreadable. Is it unreadable for you, Chag? Okay, no, I just changed my feed from 144 to 720. Now it seems fine.
Wasted. Time spent among friends is never wasted. Wow, that is a heck of a delay. Dude, I can't get in the chat room. I'm trying on 2 different browsers. So, fun times.
So if I throw this back in the loop, are things just totally going to go crazy again? I think so. It just went away. It said, Pithy on you. That's weird. So Google says stream health A-OK. It says everything's great. But obviously when I try to watch it back, it's utter garbage.
Man.
Okay.
Sorry for coughing up a lung there.
I just can't put any more effort into this.
Oh.
And Windows 10 says, we're ready to install some updates. Install now or schedule for later? A-OK. And I click schedule. It says everything's great. And nothing happens. But obviously when I try to watch it back, it's utter garbage. And so I literally cannot click on anything on my screen right now.
I happened to look down and see that my battery was almost drained, and I looked over and go, I never plugged in my laptop.
Just can't put any more effort into this. Okay. I'm just going to go with what I got. Guys, I apologize if it's terrible. I just have to go with what I got. And Seth, it looks like you are in the chat room. No, you're not.
It won't never let me join. I keep trying, but it won't connect.
Try using a different name, just out of curiosity.
That's what I
You
did.
just did. Yeah.
But it's like taking literally a minute.
Huh.
And not figuratively, literally.
Okay. I'm going to clear that out. All right. And we're just going to go with it like it is. It's audio. I don't know how it's going to sound. Sorry if it's garbage.
We'll fix it in post. Now, that's a good name. But I think we've used that one before.
Well, it'll be fine. Yeah. I mean, the updated audio will obviously be fine. Funny. So, I guess that's working. Okay. So I've got a... Huh. Okay. Let's do a show. I'm going to one more time turn my thing off and back it on. On. All right. Start your local recordings, please.
I am recording locally.
Ditto.
And I don't have to worry about video switching. So, that's a bonus. Okay. Here we go. I need to be over here where I can see you, though. Okay. There we go. Miles, you're not muted in the Hangout. You don't have any audio at all, so there's nothing to mute. Okay.
Right.
Fine and dandy. Hard Rock Candy Mountain. Dolly Parton would be proud. Or mortified. Not sure which.
Okay, I promise I tried to be in the hangout or in the chat room,
I see every attempt you made. I see it.
but I get like the socket already exists, or it bounces me for the nick is already in use whenever it's one I tried before. So
Weird. Okay.
I'm so sad.
All right. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Ready to go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GeekRant, episode 253. Pithy is as Pithy does. Recorded September 18th, 2016, and brought to you by Element OP Productions. Element OP GeekRant.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the only place on the internet where geeks rant. That's right, doesn't happen anywhere else, only right here. My name is Mark, sometimes known as the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, as always, I'm going to go with that, are your friends and mine, Miles, the yet-to-be-named one, Wakeham, and Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Mark, and all of the Element Opiate faithful, thank you for sticking with us tonight. It's a wonderfully awesome pleasure to be here.
Hey, Mark, how you doing from the depths of the desert in Phoenix?
So we've had a bit of a weather break here. It's raining. In fact, in Atlanta, that's nothing new, but the high today was only in the mid-70s. It's clear that fall is upon us. So I'm guessing in the desert, you dropped from 108 to 107 today?
Yeah, I thought we were going under 100. I thought this was supposed to be the week, and then it's 107 today. Go figure.
I got it just right. Yeah, I would not choose to live in the desert. I just can't make me. Sorry. I like cold. Maybe I like cold because I've never lived in a cold climate. Maybe once I spent, a couple of years shoveling snow, I would think differently. As a friend of mine who moved from the south to the north says, he never has to shovel heat. So, I understand that that's a thing. But being that it's such a rare thing in my life, I really look forward to the cold weather. Maybe if I had it for 6 months, I would think differently. But heat is not my friend. Fat men and heat do not get along well.
Preach it, brother.
Easy. It's not easy. This is the time of year where we all go through all of the damage that the summer heat did to everything that was outside. So if you've got a patio, it's gone. That's the end of it. If you've got water fountains, they've long given up the ghost. And we just take this inventory of everything we've got to replace because 4 months of heat will kill anything.
This is true.
Yep.
Okay, that was not much of a conversation starter. One of the things I found moving here is that humidity is just as damaging. In Texas, we could have wood furniture. Apparently, that's not a thing in Georgia. They don't know that you can make furniture out of wood, at least not outdoor furniture. Everything here is wrought iron or aluminum. Anyway, enough about that. So, Seth, you are back home in Texas. Good to see you back.
Yes, thank you. It is good to be back, and I am scheduled to be here till next Monday. So not tomorrow as of the recording, but a week from tomorrow, I am scheduled to fly out, this time to Michigan.
Okay.
You don't drink the water? Is that the best advice there?
I pulled it up on the map, and we're on the other side of the state from Flint. So, but yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be drinking the water anyway. So I might ask them for a little bit larger per diem and, just to buy more bottled water.
So we have a unique experience, or at least unique in my lifetime here today. Saturday morning, they're not really sure when it actually happened, but Saturday morning, a pipe was discovered in Alabama, a gasoline pipeline, so refined gasoline piping from the south. It goes all the way up the east coast in Alabama is broken and had leaked something like 300,000 gallons of gasoline in an open field there in Alabama. So while they're in the process of repairing that, they have shut down that line. And it is like, it's reminiscent of 9/11, at least in my part of the world. The rumors immediately spread that gasoline was going to be $9 a gallon, and everybody ran to fill up. And there is literally no gas to be had within probably 10 miles of me. My wife went out today looking to fill up because she's at, on half a tank, and it's time to look at putting some more gas in. And she went to, I think, 7 gas stations. 5 of them were completely out, and the other one had a line going out into the street and down the road. There just is no gas. And I'm not sure if this is panic or if this is real. And maybe it's a little of both. Gas is going to get to Atlanta. They're going to put it on trucks, and they're going to send it on. In fact, Governor Nathan Deal has already declared a state of emergency, not because we're all going to die, but because that emergency declaration gives him some special powers, one of which is he has suspended the rules about driver hours. So tanker truck drivers no longer have to stop after, however many hours it is. During the state of emergency, they can drive as long as they want. So they're going to put gas on trucks and they're going to drive it up. And of course, that costs more than pumping it through a gas line. So it's going to cost more. But I'm not sure that it's appropriate to panic. But at the same time, I'm not sure that come this time next week, I'm going to be able to get to work.
And there's a new season of The Walking Dead starting. That's what it's all about.
So, Mark, you want me to load up some gas cans and drive out to Georgia?
Yes. Would you do that? Just load a tanker truck up. You could actually sell it probably at $6 or $7 a gallon right now. I mean, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. If you loaded a tanker truck up, just one of those big 150 or I guess they'd probably be more like 1,000-gallon tanks that people put in the backs of pickups to water fields.
Right.
If you filled one of those with gasoline, that $100,000 or whatever investment would net you tens times over that around here because people are legitimately desperate, and I'm not sure if the panic caused the problem or if the problem caused the panic. It's still too early to tell. It just happened Saturday morning that we record Sunday night, so it's been less than 48 hours. And I don't know if people panicked because they heard the news or if we're just literally that short, like one day of no gas does this. There is a thing called just-in-time delivery. Everybody wants to not be storing anything. That's right. The way the system is designed. And that's one of, if you read all the zombie things, that's one of the harbingers of doom, in that if that supply line is disrupted, the world doesn't have what it needs. Like there's only maybe 3 days worth of groceries in all the grocery stores combined in the country. And if we don't get groceries coming in, people don't eat. It's and so Chag in the chat room says that in North Carolina people aren't panicking yet, but it's going to affect people all the way up the East Coast because this pipeline feeds all the way up to New York. But the people up in the far north have other pipelines they can draw from. Here in Atlanta, that pipeline literally comes into Atlanta, and then is pumped out from Atlanta. So we don't have any other choices. It illustrates the dangers of the just-in-time delivery system, in that when that one method breaks, we got nothing. And I know it's unprecedented for a pipe to break. Apparently that's never happened in the history of time. So this is a unique experience where a pipe broke and we can't get stuff.
Well, if you bump into a Tesla owner with a big smirk on his face, you have my permission to kick him.
Yeah, he'll be giving rides for $18 a mile or something. He'll clean up on Uber before they get the gas.
One of my coworkers drives a hybrid. It's one of those where the engine is only there to charge the batteries. And so it's a big SUV that gets like 45 miles to the gallon, which is pretty cool. It has zero performance. If you want to pass, it'll happen sometime in the next 15 or 20 minutes. But this coworker is going to be, pretty smug, I can imagine, when all of us are calling into work saying, I can't get to work today, no gas. Although, they may be actually upset that they can go to work. That may be a problem.
You have to go to work.
It does make you think, though. I mean, they talk about all these solar flares and stuff like that can wipe out or EMP out a electrical supply for weeks or something, and the chaos it would cause. Is it should I don't want to put on my tinfoil hat on this, but is this something we should be worried about?
Where I live, I am literally the last pole on the line from the electric company. It ends at our house. And so, if there's ever a storm, and the electric company is east of us. So the storm will roll over my house and I'll have power, and then it'll pass and go east. And all of a sudden I'll lose power because something happened to the transmission line. And I always told my dad, we should have a generator, not like a huge, 40,000 RPM diesel thing taking up the whole house size, but something like that would just get you through that couple of days, or in that case, a couple of hours. But there was a time, and I wish I could remember, maybe it's been almost 10 years, that a hurricane hit the coast and it kind of came up and the eye went just to the south and then to the east of us. And, they were talking about how, oh, you should stock up and all of this. And I'm like, dude, we're so far inland, we're just going to get wind and rain. And so, when the hurricane came and the water's blowing sideways and, it was like 30-mile-an-hour wind, I was like, I don't have anything else to do. I'm going to drive to Walmart and, just pick up a little. And so I walked down the aisle for bottled water. And I mean, it looked like the zombie apocalypse had happened. There was no water, there was no soda, there was no nothing, because people panicked because they weren't prepared initially. And this isn't like being prepper stupid, uber prepared. This is just like, you should have enough food in your house for a couple of days. And if that's the case, then you're fine. But people aren't. And so something happens and it creates panic because everybody goes out and tries to get to the level that they should have been at all along. And that's what causes the problem.
Yeah, I can relate. I lived through the 1994 earthquake in Los Angeles. We were, I don't know, maybe 5 miles or 6 miles from the epicenter. And I remember going to, my house was okay. I mean, it depended which direction you were from the epicenter. It's like the waves of the earth sort of spread out at different angles. We didn't really get too badly affected, but I remember going down to the local supermarket. Of course, it was all closed, but they had opened it up for water supply, and people were killing each other trying to get this, water. And we were offline for maybe a day at this point, and I'm thinking, really, come on, this is a bit, eventually everything got back to normal, but it's crazy how people react to that sort of thing. It's very unpredictable.
And it's Chad brought up in the chat room. It's one of the things that people talk about all the time is that America is not making significant investments in infrastructure and hasn't been for decades. And I don't know what caused this particular pipe. The couple of newspaper articles I read, they didn't know. So it's still under investigation. It could be rust, it could be deterioration, or it could just be, there was a small earthquake, or, we just don't know what caused it. And so I'm not willing to blame it on poor infrastructure just yet, but it is sort of a harbinger of things to come, right? Maybe.
It's like we're coasting by off of the strength of how great we were. And if we don't invest, it's sort of like if you're somebody who works out and you built up a buff body, you could kind of start cutting back and then cruising on how well you built up. And then so you stop working out and this fat slob over here starts working out. It'll get to the point to where the guy who was in shape still looks like he's in shape, and the guy who was a fat slob still looks like a fat slob, but the guy who looks like a fat slob would be able to destroy the guy who looked good because he kept the form of what he had when underneath he had all deteriorated, and this other guy who had nothing built himself up. And unfortunately, here in America, we're coasting on how great we were, and we're not paying for the next generation to be great, because we'd rather have our iPhone 7 with our $4,000 headphones now. Something like that. I don't know if we wanted to like really go political.
Well, going political is sort of what we do best. And none of this was something that I'd planned to talk about, but it just, it's one of those things that it makes you think. We're not to the point of, as far as I know, there hasn't been any looting or fighting or anything like that. But there are people waiting in line to get gas. Do all those people really need gas today? I don't think so. I filled up my truck because it was time to fill up my truck. I didn't make a special trip for it. I was already out. I was already driving past a gas station, and it had gas at it. It was several miles from my home. I was leaving church going the opposite direction to get something to eat, and I stopped at the gas station there that was busy, but not, lines around the corner. But all they had was the regular unleaded 87 octane. They didn't have the mid-grade or the premium. Those were turned off. It seems to me that if you were going to run out, you'd run out of the cheap stuff first. But I don't know. Maybe it was just a problem with their maybe the pipeline is only sending the mid-grade stuff, right? If it's already refined, the pipeline is only going to be sending one of those two types of oil, right? So most people don't realize that there are three grades. There's the premium, there's the low grade, and then there's the mid-grade. The mid-grade is just a mix of the two. They don't even have 3 tanks at most gas stations. There are 2 tanks and then a mixing chamber. It's not really a full tank. So maybe only the premium one is running out, and people are panicking and buying all the low grade. I don't know. But again, there's a lot of unknowns. But it seems to me that if it's pumping refined gasoline and it's not running to a refinery, then it can only be pumping one of those two. So we should have an ample supply of the other one. Right?
You know, Mark, you can't really apply logic and reason to remember it's your favorite quote from Men in Black. A person is smart, but people are stupid. So you know, it's that mob mentality. And just think, if everybody had a 5-gallon gas can in their garage that they used and they kept full, then everybody would just use that. And then the supply would be fixed in a couple of days, because, you know, those pipelines pump and they charge per like how many gallons go through them, and the people who own the pipelines, that's how they make their money. So if there's no gas flowing through, they're losing money. So you can bet that there's double and triple golden time overtime, and people are being flown in, and that pipe's getting fixed, and the gas is going to flow because the company that owns that pipeline, they want to get paid. So it's not going to be a long time. You know, it's the greed in that case is a good situation.
Yeah.
Hey, we can work an 8-hour shift and be done in a month and lose money for that, or we can have work 24/7 and be done in 2 weeks and only lose 2 weeks worth of income. So we've spent twice as much money, but we're only losing half the amount. So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Bicycles, people. Bicycles.
Well, I work 23 miles from home. A bicycle, while is an option, is not an option for me. You know, there are people who could bike, 46 miles a day, and people who do, but this fat boy ain't one of them. So, the problem is not the way we get around; it's where we get to. The fact that America is such a car-heavy culture, we have built our lives around the assumption of easy, cheap transportation.
Do you think, though, we can be a more remote workforce? I mean, that was always kind of the promise of the internet, right?
Yes. For example, what I do, I could do 94% of my job remotely. And in fact, I do work remotely 1 day a week. And that 1 day a week, there's nothing that I can't do other than, meet face-to-face with people. We have, instant messaging, Skype for Business. We have Citrix lets me literally work on my same workstation. It's not even an approximation of it. It is a remote access into my workstation. All of the software that we use is hosted. So there's almost nothing. I mean, there are some things, some amount of collaboration is dampened, and I don't forward my desk calls to my phone on those days. My cell phone, I could, but they don't pay me for my minutes, so I don't do that. But with a few tweaks, a small, inexpensive hardware VPN at my office, I could do everything I do, remotely. And I think most people could, but companies are so afraid that if people are working from home, the first word isn't happening. They're just from home. And maybe the problem isn't that we can't do it as a nation, but that we're unwilling to, or maybe it's inappropriate distrust. But I mean, it's very common.
It's from, if you're at the office and everything that you need to do for your job is done, there's a sense you better find something to at least look busy.
Yeah.
Because God forbid 2 people who have all of their sections work caught up are talking about something and not at least pretending to work. And so, it's one of those where there's a sense you're getting paid. I expect you to at least look like you're doing something, not, oh, that job's done. Awesome. You're here if an emergency happens. And so there's, like I say, people, it can be abused by both sides. It has been abused by both sides, but until that, hey, you're paid for this job is done, so congratulations, you'll get paid to do the job again, kind of thing. But that mentality, and you know i don't I don't know how to weigh that out, but that's a lot of it. If you're working from home and you finish your job, if it only took you 4 hours, and if you're getting paid hourly, then you've got to find something to do for the other 4 hours. But if you're getting paid a salary, then the company might not like it, because hey, he finished his job in 4 hours, but yet we're paying him the equivalent of an 8-hour job.
Yeah. I heard a statistic a couple of days ago, and it kind of freaked me out. By 2020, 6% of all US workers' jobs will be replaced with robots. 6%. So that's a huge number of jobs. So maybe we should be looking for work that enables you that freedom and enables you that ability to sort of decouple from the traditional job, because that traditional job may not even be there.
I mean, that's sort of the goal of technologists, right? That they want to put people out of work, not directly, but as technology gets better at what it does, like there are not as many welders, for example, as there were 70 years ago, because welding is a largely robotic thing now. GM doesn't employ hundreds of line level welders; they employ dozens of line level robot welders, and that's just one example of things getting digitized. I'm sure I've mentioned it before because it's one of my favorite quotes. I was reading an article written in the 60s, and one of the things it said was that the modern advancements in technology will allow the average businessman to work only 20 hours a week. And those of us who feel a 50-hour a week 50 hours in a week is like part-time, we laugh at that, but the reality is that we can do everything that worker in 1950 or 1960 did in less than 20 hours. So it's not that we're not as productive as the future promised, but we're doing far more. We're so much more productive that you would get fired for doing what a businessman in the 50s did in a week. Like, for example, one spreadsheet filled out in 10 minutes is essentially an accountant's week in 1956 with a slide ruler and paper.
Right. And what did you do? You entered the number and the computer did everything else. So yeah, and that's why it becomes almost impossible to do something by hand and be financially competitive in the marketplace, because you have to spend so long doing, it might take as long to do it by hand the first time as it does to set it up for the computer to do it. And so that time it's a wash. But then when the second time comes in, you've got to do it all by hand again. And the computer, you put the number in and you're done. So, short term, hey, it takes just as long. But long term, all of a sudden, you're replacing entire departments with a machine that, if you have big pockets like me, you can literally fit it in a pocket.
Right.
God forbid the day when we have robot unions.
Well, the key to making robots is to keep them from becoming sentient, because once they become sentient, that's the end of the age of man. Even if they're a benevolent sentience, that's it. Wow, so this was a big, long, 30-minute discussion that wasn't planned for, but I like these kind of discussions. I like the fact that we have some smart guys here, and we can have smart discussions. But this, I don't know if it's illustrative or not. I can't quite decide. Audience, what do you think? Let us know. Is this one situation here in Atlanta illustrative of the future, or is this an anomaly? Are we going to get so much better that breakdowns like this won't happen? I mean, I guess that's a possibility, right? This breakdown might have simply been a failure of imagination. We didn't imagine that whatever happened was going to happen. or it could be plain old not my problem, in that this was a 50-year-old pipeline that is underground and the earth is reclaiming a little bit every day, and somebody 45 years ago said we need to schedule major maintenance on this in about 2013, and when 2013 came around they said, I'm 2 years from retirement, we'll deal with that later. Either of those is entirely likely.
I think it's that we just got lazy, because I've been thinking, when I was a kid, my grandpa, he didn't have hundreds of acres of farming, but he lived inside Dallas, and he had like a 5-acre farm. He sold that when I was like 8 and moved out in the country, bought 70 acres and put money in the bank. That taught me a lot about real estate. I went, wow, maybe it is location. But so he farmed, 20, 30 acres of that. But one thing, he always had a gas can with gas in it, either in the garage or in the shed, or actually probably both. He probably had one in the garage and in the shed, but it was at least one of those had gas. And so he was never out of gas. He would just, if gas got too low and he would use his gas can, and then the next day or whatever, he would then go to the store, fill up his truck and fill up the gas can. If people had that same level of forethought and that same level, of self-reliance, then it wouldn't be an issue. But we've gotten lazy with, I can drive to the store and pick up something on my way home. I don't even want to go to the grocery store. I'm just going to go to the convenience store and get it. So I'm going to have this refrigerator, but I'm never going to use anything out of it because I'm always going to go out to eat. But then when there's no gas, I can't do anything because I don't have anything at home to get me through the 2 days until there's gas again. So I think it's just that people are lazy.
Okay. I mean, lazy is one way to look at that, or you could look at that as, we have a more ready supply and easier access to gasoline than your grandfather did. And so we've just accepted the status quo, where we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're dancing around now, but it got me to thinking. So let's talk about some other things that should get you to thinking if it's done right. Miles, tell us about Snowden, the movie.
Oh yeah, I got to see that today. It came out Friday, so 2 days ago, and man, it's really cool. It's an Oliver Stone movie, well done, very impressive. It kind of reminds me a lot like the old JFK movie he did, but I think that the interesting thing about this movie is that I certainly in the geek world, we probably all know this Edward Snowden story because, we've dealt with it for the last 3 or 4 years. This was one of those ways that it was told as a docudrama, but focusing on all of the things that led up to his decision to go public and be the whistleblower. And, a lot of the things that if you've ever seen Citizen 4, or is it Citizen 4? Yeah, that was the other one, right? Or you've seen some of the various documentaries about what happened, the escaping from Hong Kong into Russia and all that sort of thing. You pretty much know what occurred when we all started realizing that, Verizon's given up our phone records and the metadata and all that stuff. So we kind of knew what happened from then on, but what we didn't know, what led up to this whole thing. And what Oliver Stone's done very well is to tell the story of Snowden from when he first enlisted in the military all the way through his career in the CIA and the NSA, and his sort of advancing and the mentorship he had within the security community, and how he gets to the point of starting to see where everything was going wrong from the inside, and how he makes that leap from doing what he believed was his duty in terms of serving his country and everything, to actually realizing that, things have gone horribly wrong and he has to take a stand, and he was the only one willing to effectively do it. So I think Oliver Stone did an excellent job in telling that part of the story. But what happens the stuff that we're probably used to seeing, the hotel room in Hong Kong when the Laura Porteous documentary was being filmed, and the footage that we probably all pretty much saw on the news, that was minimal in this movie. I mean, it was there as an anchor point, but it was there to try to allow history to fall back to it. What was missing, I thought, was the escape from Hong Kong part. That to me was kind of like the ultimate drama portrayal that could have been told. It was kind of skipped over. In fact, it was skipped over so quickly. It was almost like frame by frame by frame by frame, and 2 minutes later, he's out. And it's not like I can tell you about this movie and, spoiler alert or whatever, because we all know what happens, right? I mean,
the boat sinks and everybody dies.
But what I can tell you, which was a little unexpected, is Edward Snowden himself appears in this movie. He actually is a character in his own story. And it's brilliant the way that was transitioned in from the actor portraying him. And then when you least expect it, there's Edward Snowden, which is kind of surprising. But no, I would absolutely suggest, if you haven't seen this already or you're planning on, make sure you do see it. It's very, very good. It is also a very much a kind of a, I don't know, it's not unbridled, but it's this hidden plea to Obama to pardon this guy before he leaves office. And that is kind of pushed through in the story, particularly towards the very end, that this is something that should be done or whatever. And whether or not, you believe him to be a traitor or you believe him to be a patriot or whatever you believe, this movie certainly is biased and on the patriot side. But that said, it's really enjoyable, and it's certainly worth the entrance fee to go and see it.
So unrelated but related, the little red disc that came in the mail for me this week was Citizen 4, the documentary about Snowden and the conversations that happened in the hotel room. And I felt it also was biased, as all documentaries are. Let's just be honest about that. You don't become a documentarian unless you have a particular story you want to tell. But it was also very tinfoil hat wingnut. They're all out to get us. Let me unplug my IP phone because they might be listening in. But at the same time, that's Edward Snowden, right? He's a tinfoil hat kind of guy, but he has the expertise to back that up at the same time. I found that I would not call it a fascinating documentary, certainly not the best documentary I've ever seen. It's definitely worth watching if you're interested in the events of it. But interestingly, they too sort of glossed over the escape from Hong Kong. It was, okay, we're on the phone with our lawyer and now we're in Russia. And maybe the reason for that is if that story is told, people go to prison. I don't really know, but I mean, I think he got out legally. He used a human rights attorney in Hong Kong. But anyway, the end of that, he was. They showed a shot of him, making spaghetti with his girlfriend in Russia, and with some ominous subtitles of he's on a watch list and whatever. My personal take on it is that Snowden is both a patriot and a felon, and he committed crimes. There is no way around that. What he did was illegal, and not only illegal, but he broke his own promise to keep secrets. I believe he did so for moral reasons, but he did an immoral thing for moral reasons. And I don't think he deserves to be pardoned, nor just, based on that movie there and his representing himself in a candid way, does he expect to be? He did what he did because he felt that people needed to know what was going on. And from the beginning, he was like, paint the target on me. I'm the one doing this. Don't try to let anybody else take the blame for this. I'm going to take the heat for this because it's the right thing to do. A very moral and courageous stance. There's every reason to believe that he might someday be hung as a traitor. That's a very real possibility. But he was willing to do that because he felt that the American people needed to know what their own government was doing. So he's both a hero and a patriot. and a felon. I said both and then put 3 things in there. He's a hero and a criminal at the same time. And I'm okay with those 2 things being a thing. The founding fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence were traitors and criminals, and they were signing their own death warrant. Fortunately, they managed to win more battles than they lost, and so they became heroes and founding fathers. But I have no doubt that each one of them will tell you, if asked, I was a traitor, I committed high treason, and I deserved the penalty of death if we didn't succeed. And I think Snowden is in the same boat there. So I would not support a pardoned movement, but I also wouldn't get mad if he was pardoned, because that's sort of what presidential pardons are for. It's to commute the sentence of somebody who has for whatever reason does not deserve what they deserve. Right? Unfortunately, presidential pardons are often a way to clear the docket and to pay back political favors. But I think this is a case where a presidential pardon would be completely appropriate, but also I don't think it's right for him to break the law in such an egregious way and get off of it. So, I'm riding both sides of the fence there. Neither thing would make me mad. If he was hung as a traitor, I would say he deserved that for what he did. If he was pardoned, I would say he deserved that for what he did.
Well, there is a movie or a documentary that was made about his escape from Hong Kong. And I think it was, I know it was on SBS, the network out of Australia. I think it might have been funded by them. But what is rarely told is the role that WikiLeaks had in that entire ordeal. They pretty much underwrote his entire escape. In fact, one of an Australian girl, and I can't think of the name, but she pretty much lived with Snowden through the 3 or 4 weeks that he was stuck in that airport in Moscow. She was there all the way through it. They filmed most of that, and they spoke about the whole process, and you could see the fear in Snowden's face at every moment when he was not sure what was going to go on. And then eventually Russia stepped up and gave him asylum. But his original intention was to get to Ecuador, and that was always being underwritten by the fact that Julian Assange was in the Ecuadorian embassy, and he could lobby the Ecuadorian government to give this guy safe passage. The problem is they couldn't get a plane from Moscow to Ecuador without it stopping somewhere, and the guy didn't have a passport. So, it was no way he could get on the plane, I guess. I mean, I don't know about this diplomatic rule set, but yeah, there was a lot going on there. And you're right, a lot was never told. It wasn't told in this movie. It wasn't told in Citizen 4. But there are other records of this that were videotaped and do tell the story. Whether the guy ever gets out of Russia is, I don't know. That's an interesting one. I don't know. The way I look at it is whistleblowers to me do an incredible service of transparency to all of us, so that we get to actually see a lot more about what's going on, so we can make informed decisions about what we feel about topic A, topic B, or topic C. And there's a lot of value in that. And without them, it's very, very hard to have an informed opinion on anything, because you're basically parroting what you see on news and so on. With them and what they do, if we don't have a rule of law, well, then all hell breaks loose, right? So at some point, they have to be recognized as breaking that rule of law. The question is whether or not what level of punishment is fitting the crime. It is a crime, yes, but is it a crime for humanity, or is it a crime against humanity? I don't know.
So the question that determines your side of the issue is, were the laws that were broken just laws, or were they power grabbing by the bureaucracy behind the government? If you think they were just laws, then, hang the bleep, he's a traitor. If you think they were power grabbing bureaucratic tools, then he's a patriot and should be free and, rage against the system.
Well, governments need secrets. I accept that as a reality. Governments need secrets from other governments, and to an extent, governments need secrets from their own people. But I believe that those secrets are, very narrow in scale. And so if you're talking about the law he broke was leaking government secrets. The law he broke was suborning perjury and perjuring himself in that perjure is not the right word. He violated his oath of office, which is both a moral offense and a legal offense. So you put it in that very black and white terms. Is the law just? Yes, I believe the law is just. Governments are allowed to have secrets. The scope of the law, the implementation of that law, was, I think, clearly demonstrated by Snowden to be completely egregious. And that's why he stepped out. So it's not as easy as A or B in that case. It's not, did he break the law? Yes, he broke the law. We've talked about this many times. There are things that are right but not legal, and things that are legal but not right. What he did was right but not legal. And he was morally justified in doing what he did. And I accept that. I believe that. I would argue that. But the fact is, he broke a legally enforced, legally in place, judicially approved law. All three branches of government had oversight over that law. The law that governments get to tell secrets, governments get to have secrets, rather. Governments get to classify things, and anybody who leaks classified information is guilty of the highest crimes. That is a law that has been a law for as long as we've been a country. And so I accept the fact that he broke the law, and I'm not willing to say that the law is unjust. Certainly the implementation of it was unjust, and that's one of the things that Snowden showed us.
Well, there's more than just the law here, though. The thing is that, I've had a secret clearance before in my time when I worked for a defense contractor. And when you take that on, you're taking more of an oath of supporting your country in the same way that an army recruit would take an oath, or anybody serving in a form of the military. The level of law there is not just about what's written on the page. It's about the ethics and the spirit of what you're doing to support your country. And I think that the questions which come up out of this movie is whether or not he actually did what was ethically supporting his country by going public, or whether or not by just being pure to the tradition of a written law, whether in fact it was not being patriotic to his duty of the country. And you're not, any good filmmaker would leave you with that question. You have to walk away making the decision of how you feel on that for yourself. That's great, because that's how a good documentary should be made. But at the end of the day, the decision to serve your country and to devote yourself to it, it trumps everything. It almost trumps law. And this is the problem inside the military establishments, whether you be a contractor or a serviceman or a civilian in working in the military. You have to take that oath that says that country first. And no matter what happens, you've got to make a decision, country first. Well, if you don't have all of the facts and you can't see the entirety of anything, how can you make a decision? And I think that was the problem. Was as Snowden continued his career, he saw more and more and more of what he didn't expect to see. And when he was able to see the whole thing, then his decision was easy to make. And for him, he chose to go public. And as a result, he got charged with espionage.
Seth, any thoughts before we leave this subject?
No, I mean, I said law, but right. There's the law that's written, and then the law has it's applied via precedent and fiat and all the other kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I really want to see the movie because I know the gist of the story, and so of course I know that there's license and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this movie. So.
And I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of Edward Snowden's actions. With one way or another, love him or hate him, the world will never be the same after his actions. History will tell us whether he is a hero or a villain, and that history will be written by the victors, right? If the truthers win, then he's a hero. If the establishment wins, then he's a villain. And we can't know that in our lifetime. He will never know the full impact of what he did. But I believe that as a technological citizen of the world, I am in a better place today than I was in 2011 before he did what he did.
He certainly redefined the term hacker,
right?
Which I've always had a bad problem. I've always had a problem with that term because it's always been used by media in a negative context. In fact, I feel it's more of a positive thing than anything, but that's me. But yeah, this guy's got mad props, that's for sure.
I mean, one of the things that I've said from the beginning, and I'll say it again, is I have no problem with the NSA wiretapping and capturing data and doing all the things that they did for non-citizens and criminals who have lost their basic rights as citizens. And there is a class of citizens of criminals that are classified that way. The problem is that the NSA has no charter to spy on its own people. They violated their own charter because it was easier. Let's just capture everything and then search it later. The searching it later may have been on the up and up. The capturing everything was not. And that's the problem. And the government needs to respond, needs to answer to that. But I think that they will never answer to it. Not the individuals and not the government as a whole, because the American people are unwilling to push the issue. But the American people, are the ones who were wronged here. It is not the government that was wronged. It is the American people. And of course, the government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. And it was clearly demonstrated that that is not the case. And so there's the thing. We as citizens of the country and of the world need to take action based on this. And as we've lamented so many times before, the action taking part of our society is pretty heavily atrophied at this point. And another thing that people aren't going to take action on, and they should, is the fact that it is law in North Carolina that you can't have good internet access.
Yeah, no, that is, and it was, they passed the law. There wasn't a law passed. The FCC they wrote like an unenforceable law saying, hey, utilities that offer a high-speed internet, you are allowed to offer high-speed internet outside the bounds of your municipality. So the city of, Saskatchewan, North Carolina, I don't even think there is one, that doesn't matter. They're only allowed by the charter, the Utility Commission, to offer internet services within the city limits. And so the FCC came up with a thing and said, hey, it's okay, you can go outside your city limits and offer it. Well, some of the states, on behalf of the monopolies that they created, took the FCC to court, and they won, saying that nope, you're only allowed to offer that within the confines of your municipality. So all you people who paid for it, the utility who put the money out to increase their infrastructure, tough luck on you. We're going to protect the monopolies that we created and leave everybody stranded high and dry with crappy internet, and the monopolies have no reason to upgrade because there's not another game in town for them to go play.
Yep. Reading this article from Ars Technica, the company was named Greenlight, and their fiber network provided speeds minimum of 40 megabits, maximum of 1 gigabit, minimum price $40, maximum price $100. So you were paying $10 per megabit. $100 gigabit. Oh my gosh. I'm paying $120 for 90 megabits. So man, I would be all over that in a heartbeat, and a lot of people were, and that's what people didn't like. And people being this is anti-competitive. It's considered a monopoly when a municipality that has not only no charter to make profit, but actually cannot make profit, is undercutting the business of people who do make profit. And so they went and said, these people, it's like, for example, using prison workers for construction projects. That was a thing that happened commonly in the 20s and 30s. Prison workers don't have a choice. These are not laborers. These people are not paid to do what they do. So a prison work detail could undercut any construction project anywhere. And they did. And so the jailers were lining their pockets, and businesses were being undercut. That's when these laws came into place, that municipalities, things that are funded by public funds, can't undercut the businesses that fund them. So again, you go back in time, all of this makes perfect sense. But today, what it means is I can't have good internet.
Yeah, and especially because in this specific case, Greenlight already provided utilities to Pine Tops, and so it's not like they were opening a new market. Since they were already providing utilities, so there was no utility company in that city to do their own service. So hey, we've got this, we'll just extend our infrastructure, and actually the infrastructure is already there because we use smart meters. We'll go ahead and give you internet access. So in this particular case, anyway, we've lamented the fact here that the problem in America is that the monopolies created by the government and carved out, whether it be the cable monopolies, or phone is obviously a little better because, I remember I think it was either Sprint or MCI, and then they later merged. They broke up the AT&T monopoly, the Bell monopoly. But there's this huge problem where there is no competition. And the one thing that the American economy has proved is that competition gives you better prices and better products because you have a reason to put forth good stuff. If nobody else can do what I do, I can do it just as crappy as I want to, and I can charge you just as much money for it, and I'm the only game in town. And anybody who tries to come bring their game here, I sick the government on them.
Yeah, that's
oligarchy,
isn't it?
And all governments are monopolies.
Yeah.
Right.
But, Charter's not a government. Maybe they are. Maybe they're the, Charter and Time Warner, they're the cabal that's actually running. It's not the Illuminati, it's the cable companies. We've just had it wrong all these years.
What are your thoughts, Miles?
Well, I'm still living with 12 megabit per second download internet here in our home. So, and I'm sure there's people having way worse than that out there in the world. So I shouldn't complain, but you get 8, right? There you go. But we did get a letter this week from our internet provider, Cox, which I haven't opened yet, but I know that we're out there laying fiber in the street. So I'm hopeful that, the 100 gigabit internet pipe will soon be upon me. And then at that point, I'll be very, very happy and going crazy with my Netflix. And but at this point, I'm still living, I guess, in the dark ages of bandwidth.
Yeah, I pay what for me seems like an awful lot of money.
Negative reviews all over Amazon on this, and the world was coming to an end. And I realized that it was basically one of those Kickstarter projects where everyone went in with best intentions, and immediately they hit the wall when the big telcos were controlling what bandwidth they were allowed to have and realizing they were just taking too much. And it's as you say, when the bigger the power, the more control they have over stopping what might be best for the customer because it's not in their best interest.
Seth, any follow-up?
No, that's, one of these days, when the air clears up and the sun comes shining through and the rest of the country song you can fill in there. But I just, okay, yay, it'll be fixed eventually, but that doesn't stop the fact that we're getting reamed now. And, okay, I understand that cable companies and phone companies, they can't compete. Well, you don't deserve a 50% bonus because you jacked everybody's prices up 30% so that you could meet bonus for revenue growth. There's a two-party contract here where if both sides give, then both sides get. But you have one side that is taking everything they can get, and then they're not paying off. They're merely contributing to people's campaigns, which is their right to get more. And the other side has to give, and they don't get crap. And like I say, one of these days it'll be fixed. But in the meantime, it's painful.
What I loved about that whole tirade was it began with, "No, I have nothing to say."
I don't have anything to say. You wait till I'm passionate about something.
So while we're on the topic, let's talk about how Verizon still wants to screw its customers.
Yeah, this was, this is one of those funny stories. Somebody probably just put an extra couple of zeros or move the commas or decimal points, but um in there was this customer who was charged basically a $91,000 wireless bill
No,
because
9,100.
she had been paying like 118 a month, and then all of a sudden she used 569 gigs of data for a whopping 800 or $8,535, and then she said, "I'm not paying this. I'm canceling." And Verizon said, "That's fine. That'll be an extra $600." And they refused to deal with her until she got a newspaper to run the story, and then they said, "Oh, we'll drop that, but you still have to pay the cancellation charge." And then so when the newspaper contacted them about, "Hey, what do you do like in this particular case to verify that the metrics you have to track data are accurate?" And they responded with, "We satisfied that person's bill." And so they have you as a consumer, you're up to the mercy of the people charging you to take the amount that they said you use word for it. It's not like you can have a switch set up and all that, and you could track that.
But it wouldn't be,
probably wouldn't.
It wouldn't be admissible. You could do it, but the official meter is, the Verizon's meter or Comcast's meter or AT&T's meter. So it wouldn't matter if you took all those steps and showed them the printout. They'd say, "Well, that's not what our system says."
But you would at least have a way to check. And and I would understand if, hey, I'm off by a couple of megs or maybe even a gig, but but here I have no way to check if the number I'm getting is accurate, because it's done, it's cell phone data, wireless data. So I'm at their mercy to say, "Hey, this is how much data I use." And so am I going to be the next person with a $9,100 bill? Probably not, because I don't have Verizon. But I thought it was kind of a funny story that underlies a point in society. We're at the mercy of the ISP to do what they say they do the way they say they do it, and not cut any corners while they're doing it.
It must be one of those formula things, and I'd love to hear from anybody out there in the listening community who might work for a telco or understands the economics of this, because it just seems like there's an allocation of bandwidth on a per account basis that they're sort of putting into their spreadsheets and predicting out. And then when somebody exceeds the norm and you're no longer a measurable commodity because you use 500 gigabytes of data or something like that, it blows up all of their models. And what they want to do is they basically want to just penalize the individual as a kind of a, don't do what this person's doing or it will blow up everything we're doing. I'd just like to know the economics of how they calculate bandwidth per customer, to work out, are we overloading their towers or something? Or is this because they don't want to invest in more towers? I mean, what's up with that? If anybody knows, please tell me.
I fall back on the old principle of because they can. I don't know that that's what it is, but it seems to me like a because they can moment.
Yeah, that's sad, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But we don't make the rules. We're sheep in this situation, and why? Because they all have local monopolies, and they don't have to be responsible to anybody. That's the power of a monopoly. You can do literally what the heck ever you want.
Because it's amazing. Every time Google says, "Hey, we're bringing fiber to this city," all of a sudden, I don't know how it happens, whoever has the dominant internet there, all of a sudden their infrastructure magically upgrades to be able to compete with Google's pricing and data structure. Doesn't happen till then, but something about Google bringing fiber rewrites the mysteries of physics and causes bits to flow faster through the glass of other people's fiber. That Google does some awesome stuff, and that's one benefit that they just don't get enough credit for.
We had that problem here in our city, or in Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Tempe, which are the three areas near where I live in Arizona. Google had made a deal that came right down to the final signing of the deal to bring fiber to our area. And, the mayor was involved, the mayors of each of these city areas were involved, and everything was looking great. It was one of those political things. Right at the point when they were about to put pen to paper on this thing, Arizona had all of this negative publicity about the show me your papers, Sheriff Arpaio thing that was kind of got national attention. And the second that happened, Google just backed way off from the whole deal and said, we don't want to be associated with any of this. And they fled. And next thing, Utah got, fiber and we didn't, or something. But and that's what goes on. There's a lot of government in this. There's a lot of politics. It's not just about the money side of things, but it's about what's got to appear right for the community too.
So these are all different stories that we've told tonight, but they're all the same story. From Snowden to Verizon to Greenlight, it's all the story of government doing things that aren't right in the name of something that is right. And to continue that theme, AdBlock Plus now says, "Hey, we like ads."
Yeah, I do understand, but AdBlock Plus, they built their business model and their company about we block ads. That's ad block. I thought that meant they block ads, but then they threw the plus on there, and so we're AdBlock Plus. We sell ads that you get to see because these companies paid us money, and AdBlock Plus is a premium product, right? It costs money, isn't that right?
No, it's free.
Oh, I should have done some research for the show, but I didn't want to break precedent. So the person, you wanted to see something else on the internet. And so, but what AdBlock has now done is they have sold, they've set this magical ethereal level that says your ads must conform to this. And it's probably the size of the paycheck is really what it must conform to. And if it does, then we'll let you show ads on all of these machines that nobody else gets to show ads to. So I wonder, are people is it the tyranny of the default that people have AdBlock Plus installed now and they forgot they did? So they're going to start seeing ads and think, oh, well, or is it going to die? People start dropping it, so they have to take less money, and then they get crappier ads. And then have they killed themselves, shot themselves in the foot, so to speak? But yeah, technically now AdBlock Plus is now an ad network, much like Google AdSense.
That's crazy. I've heard so many people who have got blogs, even publishers, newspaper companies, that sort of thing, and their entire business is living on AdWords revenue, from Google and so on. And they're all out there telling their people who read their blogs, don't install AdBlock or uBlock Origin or any of these blockers because it stops us making money. And I look at the whole thing and go, well, then you're in the wrong business in the first place, because if your entire business is based around selling ads to something as a primary goal, and not the content of what you're creating out there, I don't know if I really want to be reading this anyway. And I don't know, maybe I'm being too socialist. I don't know.
Well, but at the same token, you gotta pay. You gotta, baby gotta eat. So you gotta make your money somewhere. So you put out this content and you structure it so that you get the AdWords. So that's how it produces your salary. So you can't, if everybody wrote for free, it would be great, but no, people's money makes the world go round.
I mean, advertising has been a staple of media for as long as there has been media. And so it's not unusual for the sole way people make money is to be selling ads. Every newspaper, every radio station, every television station exists solely on ad revenue. So that's not a new thing. Sony, for example, doesn't make money off of ads. They pay money to ads. But NBC is a bad example now that they're owned by Comcast, which owns the world. But WSBC local news outlet channel 4, I don't even know if that's a thing, but I just made it one. They exist entirely on ad revenues. And so that business model, I don't disagree with you that it's a damaging business model, that it's a dangerous business model, but it's certainly a tried and true. It is the business model of this podcast. We only make money by ads. I would like the business model to be that people pay me, individually, Patreon, that sort of thing. But that, we have 11 supporters. Thank you guys. I love the 11 supporters, but where's the other 4,989 of you? And so any money that I've ever made, any significant amount of money, has come through ads. And that hasn't been much. When I say significant, I'm talking a couple grand a year. I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong. It's not, oh, poor me, I only make a couple grand a year doing a part-time hobby. What I'm saying is that model is a very viable model, except on the internet. It's not, TiVo and Dish and DirecTV all have the same problem, right? The Dish got sued over the Hopper because it has a commercial skip button. The TiVo I have at home will only skip commercials if the content provider says you can. For example, it has to be a primetime thing. It has to be more than 24 hours old, and it has to not be available anywhere else. Then I can use the skip commercial button. Otherwise, I have to use the advanced 30 seconds button, which nobody can stop apparently, or hasn't tried to. So advertising is not necessarily the problem. Ads are the problem, right? Nobody fast forwards through a Super Bowl ad. Why? Because they're the best ads you'll see all year. And the problem is not AdBlock Plus. AdBlock Plus is saying, if you don't make crappy ads, we'll let your ads go through. And I think as an AdBlock Plus user, actually a former user, I use uBlock Origin now, because AdBlock Plus got kind of scummy. If like the Google model, Google says we're going to put ads on our pages, but they're not nasty ads. They're not punch the monkey. They're just little text ads. I don't mind that. And if AdBlock Plus says, hey, to keep this thing going and to help change the industry, we're going to say, as long as your ads don't suck, we'll show your ads. I'm actually totally okay with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Advertising, you're right. Advertising is not a Boolean thing where it's on or it's off. I mean, there's subtlety, and there's ads that you can place on sites that don't get in the way. I mean, I'm sure we've all encountered those websites where you go to them, you scroll down, you get down like half a page, and then something pops up to try to get you to subscribe to something, and then you're looking for the X to get rid of it, and it drives you nuts. I hate that sort of thing. But I also hate going into seeing these overly engineered ads that are just purely psychosis. They're trying to get you to think a certain way, to have expectations about who you are or your weaknesses or your what you don't have that you must go and buy. And it turns the world into this kind of zombie-led corporate everyone's got to have a Starbucks in the morning and a McDonald's at lunch and because it's all this corporatization. That drives me nuts.
Everything is awesome.
Right.
You just described the plot of that movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, then if I could have that not touch my life, I would be a much happier person. And I realize that everybody's different. Some people are very susceptible to that sort of advertising, and that's what pays for the content that, goes out there on the publishers and so on. And other people maybe not so susceptible. I'd like to think the audience of this show are not very susceptible people. They're inquisitive and they can work things out for themselves. But that's not a huge, I mean, I don't know what percentage of our population fall into that category, but it's not enough. Because all the other ones are out there zombie walking the malls and buying everything they can because the TV told them to do so.
Right.
And so, that's the line can't be crossed where we allow that to happen, but it does. And what do you do?
A couple of weeks ago, I was at a high school football game, and the high school football has changed a lot since 1990 when I graduated. But also high school football in an area with 1 million plus people is different than high school in an area with 500 plus people. But the advertising was insane. Just obsequious is not the right word, annoyingly insane to the point of it was like that pop-up ad that comes up when you move your cursor off a page. Before you go, would you like to subscribe? So this poor announcer guy had to say, and now going back for the Chick-fil-A Bells Ferry Road kickoff, number 45 kicks the ball, and and every time there was a timeout. Stop. Don't you wish you could have said that before you dropped your phone? So-and-so repairs. And he had to say this all throughout the game, hundreds of times throughout the game. Every time there was a kickoff return, every time there was a timeout, every time there was a punt, it was sponsored by somebody. The third downs were sponsored. This, Luigi's Italian Restaurant third down is third and 11, and the Longhorns are in a deep trouble. And I felt so sorry listening to this poor guy do his ad reads, and it made me mad. It made me not want to go to games in the same way that the Punch the Monkey makes you not want to go to a website. But the fact is, they must work, right? People wouldn't do this if it didn't work. Or is that just not right? Is that wrong thinking?
Part of it is, if I don't do it, somebody else will. So I don't want people thinking about them, because the only bad publicity is no publicity. I'd rather have them stuck on how awful my name and my business is, because at least they'll remember the name of my business, versus somebody else might say a better ad and put me out of business.
Or we've created an expectation in the mindsets of every consumer out there that this is how the world is, and if you don't meet that expectation, you're the odd one out, and that's sad. That's really sad to me.
Yep.
I mean, early on in the game, this announcer was he's not an announcer. He's a good old boy. He's a Georgia boy whose kid probably plays football, and I thought, maybe I should offer my time as a semi-pro announcer. I have some skills. I know how to read copy. I'm not that great at play-by-play, but it's high school football. I think I could wing it. It doesn't really move all that fast.
That's why there's two people: the color guy and the guy who knows the stuff.
They couldn't afford two people here. This was one guy on a mic. But by the end of the second quarter, I was like, oh my gosh! Not only do I not want this gig, I don't ever want to come to another game again. And understanding this is the high school that my kids are going to go through, and I'm going to go to, 12, 15 games a year, listening to this every year. It just made me want to commit seppuku right there in the stands.
So, okay, this is coming over the loudspeaker, and you're not listening to a game on the radio?
No, this is a high school announcer over the PA at the game.
Oh my gosh, that's disgusting. Wow. That's ugh.
We've sunk to this.
Yeah, and so when you look at something like that, it's easy to say advertising is the problem. If we could just get rid of advertising. Well, if you got rid of advertising, a lot of things would go away. Game of Thrones would go away. Netflix would go away. A lot of things that you like would go away without advertising. But good advertising is the problem. You need good ads, and so I kind of applaud AdBlock Plus in saying we're gonna make the world a better place by having better ads, and we're gonna make some money doing this, and the advertisers are not gonna be blocked. They're gonna get a win. It's a win-win, right? You get an ad. A good ad is relevant. I mean, there are times when I click on an ad because, hey, look at that. There's a relevant ad that's useful to what I need. But it's such a small thing.
They should change their name to AdBlock Accept. Then I wouldn't have a problem with it. And
maybe they will, right? And so I'm not. I think what I was going to say before you so rudely interrupted me, Seth, was that I don't have a problem with what they've done. I have a problem with the way they've done it. This is a betrayal of trust. AdBlock was blocking ads. It's built right into the name. And now they've modified and said, well, we're going to block the bad ads and we're going to let the good ads through. That's a betrayal of trust. And had they spun off another company, yeah, that'd be okay. The trouble is nobody's going to download a plugin called Better Ads. When in fact, that's what we all want. We all want better ads. We just don't think we do. I mean, we think we want no ads. That just doesn't exist. If there's no ads, there's no content. So what we want is better ads. So a plugin called Better Ads Plus, I would install that. I would be happy to install that personally. All right. Apparently, I have ended that conversation.
Well, no, I just don't know if you're going to say anything else. I don't want to rudely interrupt you again.
Yes, you do. You want to rudely interrupt me.
No,
you live
I really
for
do
rudely interrupting. I haven't. It's been a long time since I said this on the air, on the bits, so to speak. When having asynchronous conversations over distance where there is lag involved, the only way to get your point across is to interrupt. I was telling Miles this one of his first shows. Like, don't feel bad about interrupting. That's the only way you're ever going to say anything. Because one of the reasons we use video here, even though we're not able to broadcast it tonight, we're using it because I can at least see Seth start to open his mouth, and I know, okay, I need to let him speak. So if you ever get mad at me or at Seth or at Miles for interrupting, that's the only way you can have a conversation in a multi-casted sort of place. So let's just get that out there. I get accused of bullying people. Not just on this show, but on other shows, on the Android App Addict show that I host. One of the first things was Mark never lets anybody talk. When in reality, if you look at the editing, I'm like 20% of the conversation. But the only way I can say something is to interrupt somebody. And, podcasters know this. That's just the way it is. Radio, if you listen to radio, because most of the time they're not looking at each other, right? If they're having a conversation across distance, certainly on television news shows, you see that all the time. They're interrupting each other because of the satellite delay. It's just the way you have to have a conversation. Sorry, here endeth the lesson.
Yeah, what he said.
And then one last thing that I want to talk about, because it's government. Let's let the American government off the hook a little bit and talk about the EU saying that Kodi is a bad thing. Kodi being the new version of XBMC. So ready, go.
Well, I kind of expected this sort of. If you've ever installed Kodi on any device, whether it's your computer or a set-top box for your TV set or whatever, I mean, it's the open source version or the extension of the XBMC Media Center, now rebranded as Kodi. Well, the really cool thing about Kodi is that it does all these neat things, like it can be your front-end player to your NAS. If you've got a whole bunch of video content on a server, it'll play it, and does a really good job at handling codecs and all that sort of stuff. And it's also great if you've got like live TV and you want to do a PVR on your network and you need a live TV front end, kind of like a TiVo to that sort of thing. It's great for that. But one of the most popular things people do with Kodi is they install add-ons, video add-ons in particular. And if you ever get on YouTube and you start searching on YouTube for video add-ons for Kodi, you'll find all these incredibly diverse and interesting people out there who will tell you about this month's best add-ons for Kodi. And of course, they'll show you how you get all your sports TV for free and how you can get TV from the UK for free and TV from Paris and get all the movies, the second they come out. And it's not copyright friendly stuff for the most part. I mean, it certainly isn't, but it's because it's kind of underneath people who are willing to hack set-top boxes, and then they're willing to put Kodi on it, and then finally they're willing to find these repositories of all this, unethical kind of add-ons to it. It's not the average guy out there on the street who ever comes into contact with this. You've got to have some serious geek creds to find this stuff. But apparently the EU doesn't think that's the case. They think that they're going to ban all Kodi boxes. Now, Kodi boxes being somebody who got a computer or a set-top box, installed Kodi on it, and then installed add-ons onto that. They call that a Kodi box. Apparently that's going to be outlawed. Well, I don't know. Nobody out there in the open source community would probably have a great deal of credibility selling those Kodi boxes, since it's all free and open source anyway. But according to the EU, we'll just take the whole lot down just in case.
Well, they are all over Amazon. You go to Amazon and type Kodi box and just see what happens. All over eBay, and they say free TV, and they are flaunting the law. So, but all this will be is, here's the box. Once you get it, it'll run a setup script that'll go download everything. They're not going to stop this. But let me just lay a hypothetical situation out for you. So hypothetically, there's this guy. Let's call him Bart. And Bart used to live in Schmexis, but now he lives in Lorgia. And Bart is a big fan of the Schmexis Salboys football team. and he can't watch the Cowboys anymore in Georgia. So he, in his man cave, sets up a Kodi on a PC and goes and installs an add-on called Sports Devil, and as early as this afternoon is watching the Schmexis Cowboys on his Kodi box. Just hypothetically, that's the kind of thing that might happen to people. And that's what these boxes are for. Now, just purely for experimental purposes, I myself have hooked up a Kodi with add-ons in a virtual machine that I deleted immediately, of course. And I have found that there is everything you could want there. Not just for sports. Of course, there's ESPN, there's the NFL Network, but there's HBO, there's Showtime, there's Discovery Channel, there's Food Network, and most of these are, some guy who has, say, DirecTV and has a feed out of his box that's streaming to the internet. Some of them are literally a camera pointed at a television. But these, and some of them are hacked sources where, the HBO Go app has been hacked and somebody is pulling the streams off of that. So there's a wide variety of sources out there. But what's interesting to me is that Kodi is not breaking the law there. The developers of the apps are not breaking the law. The people streaming the content and the people downloading the content are the people breaking the law. So the EU will do nothing here by passing this law. It will serve no purpose.
Agreed. And, there's also as kind of a caveat emptor with this sort of thing too, because if those guys are trying to sell those Kodi boxes like on Amazon and so on, those preloaded ones, the problem is often that what they don't tell the person buying it is that maybe there's an add-on that gets installed that actually is a front-end BitTorrent client that's going to get this stuff from BitTorrent, right? And what no one realizes is BitTorrent clients broadcast your IP address out to everybody to come after you and try and, extort money, say you're stealing content, but the average Joe doesn't understand that. So, they're not running VPNs on this sort of thing. They're not hiding their identity. They're out in plain sight. But, it's all about getting access to the shows. So, I don't know. The EU, I think the EU does not have the right to get involved in this whole thing. But at the same time, I think it is important that people realize that getting one of these boxes could be quite dangerous for your own, legal position on this stuff if you get caught using it. And you don't even realize you're breaking the law half the time. It's just that the add-on just does it all for you, right? Automated law breaking.
So this is a real story, not hypothetical. There's this guy named Mark who bought a DVD of a Disney movie that his children then ruined said DVD. So Mark went to the torrent world and downloaded the torrent of said movie. Mark had purchased the movie. Mark had every right to view the movie, so Mark felt this was perhaps not legal but moral in doing so. Being a good citizen of the internet, Mark left his downloaded movie in the upload thing long enough to get a 1-to-1, one download, one upload. That's what good internet citizens do. It takes a while because Mark had his bandwidth choked so as not to be, sacrificing his bandwidth too much for the cause of being a good internet citizen. And after about a day and a half of this movie being in his upload folder, Mark got an email from his ISP forwarded from the RIAA. So the RIAA sent Mark a letter forwarded through the ISP saying, hey, we've noticed that popular Disney movie was available for use at your website, at this IP address. Perhaps you're unaware that this is happening. There are often plugins that make this happen. You might want to check your internet to see. We will be checking your IP address in the near future, and if it's still there, we'll have a very different conversation. That's the summary of paraphrasing of that letter. So Mark then immediately went and downloaded, and screw being a good internet citizen. But these are the sort of things that happen to people who are not as tech savvy as Mark is.
Yeah. Well, I just feel sorry for a lot of the people that are sort of suckered into buying these boxes, but I still, The EU does not have the right to try and shut down the whole thing. It's completely out of their domain, and we should all just Brexit the Cody thing.
But them not having the right doesn't stop them. So
They're governments. They give themselves the rights.
Yeah. They'll just take the right, and then all of a sudden they do have the right because they gave themselves the right, and they didn't tell themselves they didn't have the right, so therefore they now have the right because no other government said that they didn't have the right. Yeah. Because then they would turn around and say that government didn't have the right, and so yay, government. It's great to be a citizen.
The founding document of the United States says that all rights come from God, including the rights to ban Cody, apparently. Who knew? I think it's funny that we're roughly an hour and a half in here. We've talked about 4 news stories, a gas shortage, and Snowden in an hour and a half. I don't know if that's good or bad, right? But I just hearken back to 2010 when Seth and I were saying, how are we going to fill 30 minutes of content? How are we going to do that? What do we have to talk about for 30 minutes?
Can't we do a 15-minute show this week?
Well, the secret is the rant part of GeekRant,
yes,
right?
Yes. This is the only place you can find that. Nowhere else on the internet will you find Geeks Who Rant. So
ranting.
I think this was a good discussion. I was telling somebody recently, a new acquaintance of mine, that I podcast, and I honestly try to avoid that. I'm not good at self-promoting. I never have been. But not just that. It's the follow-up conversations are always, well, what do you talk about? Well, it's kind of hard to say what we talk about. We talk about sort of geek culture. Well, what is that? Well, we talk about politics, we talk about law, we talk about religion, we talk about history, we talk about technology, but it's all from a geek standpoint. Well, what does that mean? And so now I'm going down this conversation, explaining to somebody who's never going to listen to this podcast what I do. And eventually I just say, can I just get my Big Mac, please? And just, end it there. But it's hard to talk about what we do. How would I explain to somebody that 3 guys spent an hour and a half talking about 4 news stories? Oh, but it's interesting. You should download it and listen to it.
Yeah, I gave up trying to get any of my friends around here to listen. Y'all talk for an hour and a half? I don't have time for that. So.
All right. Well, Seth, wrap us up with telling us what happened this week in history.
Okay. This is pretty cool here. So this week in history, September the 20th, 1954, the first Fortran program runs. So the first successful Fortran program runs. Fortran, which is an acronym for Formula Translator, for all you internet trivia buffs out there, was invented by IBM by a group led by John Backus. Fortran's purpose was to simplify the programming process by allowing the programmer, sometimes known as a coder, to use simple algebra-like expressions when writing software. It also took over the task of keeping track of where instructions were kept in the memory, a very laborious and error-prone procedure when undertaken by humans. Fortran is still in use today in scientific and engineering applications. Let that sink in. 1954. This is 2016. It is one of the oldest programming languages still in use. It's been around for more than 50 freaking years. That happened this week in history in 1954.
Yes, it's still in use, but it's getting harder and harder to find somebody who can code it and who can debug code. It's mainly appliances that have been in place for years. And actually, Fortran developers are kind of in demand right now. You're not going to get full-time work, but you're going to get paid well when you do work.
There are still nuclear reactors running on Fortran code. Yes. I mean, that's really scary.
And it didn't know what Y2K was. Okay, that's this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can feed back to us. We've done a lot of feeding forward to you this show. You get to feed back. Tell us what you think. Go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page, fill out the world's hardest CAPTCHA, and then fill in the form. That sends an email that gets priority in my inBasket. If you do not believe in filling out forms, it's against your personal belief, you can go send us an email directly to geekrant@elementop.com. That will go to me and Seth and Chris, I think. Still, I need to fix that. But Chris likes to feel wanted too, and I'll forward it to Miles, I promise. Or you can call 559-I-AM-OPIE. No, I'm not going to tell you what those numbers are because I forgot them 5 years ago. But you can dial it on your phone and leave us a Google Voice mail, and we'll play it on the show. We like hearing from you almost as much as we like hearing our own voices. Almost. So, Seth, now what do you have this week to lower my productivity so that you seem like a better hiring option?
Okay, this is something I just came across, and so I thought I would share. It is a way to the way this will work is it's $5.99 a month, so this might cause you to like lose your house, and therefore you wouldn't be able to keep a job. Mubi, MUBI.com, is a website, and what they do is they put a different movie up every day. It is just one movie a day, and then that movie is up for a total of 30 days. And then so what will happen is they'll put a new movie in and take the oldest one out. They'll put a new movie in, take the oldest one out. If you subscribe to this service, they have an Android app, they have an iPhone app. You can download the content of any of the movies. So it's not really streaming, although you can stream if you have the subscription. But if you were going to be, on a plane ride or, a car trip where out in the boondocks where there's no internet access, you could load up these movies and watch. They are mostly foreign films. So they're not something you would probably find on Netflix, but has the chance to be interesting. Mubi.com, and they do offer a 1 month free trial. Like I say, I just came across this and went, this is kind of interesting, so I will throw it out there and let people take a look.
And programming note, if you're using the basic filters for OpenDNS, you will not be able to visit this site because it has nudity. So there you go.
Okay. Sorry.
However, I pulled it up on my phone and works just fine there. So, yeah, movies have nudity apparently. That happens once in a while. Go ahead.
Well, and like for example, here's one of the movies, Stagecoach, the John Wayne 1939 version. So you just get a different movie every day, and then they take away one that's been up there for 30 days.
Just a quick aside, as part of Amazon's premiere thing, a pilot season, I watched yesterday Jean-Claude Van Johnson. Much funnier than I expected. Very much not kid-friendly. Within the first 2 minutes, there's a naked female butt, so just be aware of that. And which is a surprise because usually Van Damme is famous for his naked butts. So in this case, it was not his; it was somebody else's. But much funnier than I expected it to be. As you're watching Jean-Claude Van Damme, a 50-year-old has-been action star, thinking, what's he gonna do? Well, the movie is essentially about a 50-year-old has-been action star. So check it out. I give it a half a thumb up. It's worth spending an hour on a Saturday afternoon. Certainly don't schedule any time for it. Just a quick review there. Miles, what are your final thoughts before we say goodnight?
Well, the only thing I was going to say that I thought might be of interest to the audience is that if you ever go to Google and you want to do a search for, if you're interested in cryptography or any solving of codes and all that stuff, and you're a bit of a student of history, and you do a Google search for Bletchley Park. Now, if anybody knows what